Why has the word become such an uncomfortable one?
We live in a world where simply being born female can be a life sentence, not a prison sentence. In some cases, the difference is negligible. We're talking about systemic, deeply ingrained oppression that deprives women of their basic human rights, their freedom, and often their very lives. Down to the bustling streets of Delhi, the stories we're about to uncover are not for the faint of heart. These aren't just headlines, folks. These are human beings, denied education, denied fundamental right to control their own destinies. This isn't some immutable law of nature. It's a man-made mess, and it's a mess we can clean up. Let's start with Afghanistan, shall we? A country where the very act of being a woman feels like a perpetual state of house arrest. Imagine for a moment being told you can't leave your home without a male escort. The Taliban decided that women are simply too distracting to be allowed an education or a job. An educated woman is a threat to the status quo, a crack in the foundation of their archaic power structure. But here's the thing the Taliban seem to forget. You can clip a bird's wings, but you can't stop it from dreaming of flight. The women of Afghanistan are dreaming of a future where their daughters can soar. Now let's talk about Syria, a country ripped apart by a war that seems to have no end. The images we see on the news, the bombed-out buildings, the fleeing refugees, they tell a story of unimaginable suffering, but what those images often fail to capture is the disproportionate burden borne by women in conflict zones like Syria. Sexual violence, sadly, becomes a weapon of war, a tool of oppression wielded against the most vulnerable. Pregnant women forced to give birth in makeshift clinics, their cries echoing through the rubble of a shattered nation. Because turning away doesn't make the suffering disappear, it just makes us complicit in their silence. And then there's Yemen, a country trapped in what the UN calls the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Imagine a place where simply surviving to see another sunrise is a victory. And in the midst of this man-made catastrophe, who do you think suffers the most? You guessed it, women and girls, married off before they even understand what marriage means. Their tiny bodies treated like bargaining chips in a twisted game of power, denied education, denied healthcare, denied even the basic right to say no. They need the international community to step up, to pressure all sides of this conflict to lay down their arms and allow humanitarian aid to reach those who desperately need it. Now let's move on to Saudi Arabia, a country that likes to present itself as a modern, reforming nation. But scratch beneath the surface and you'll find a system that treats women like legal minors. Their lives dictated by a labyrinthine network of male guardianship laws. Imagine needing permission from a male relative to travel, to work, to even get a passport. Husbands have the legal right to dictate where their wives live, whether they can work, and even whether they can see their own families. It's a gilded cage, folks, a system that claims to protect women while simultaneously stripping them of their agency and their autonomy. Until they dismantle this archaic system of male control, they'll remain a country living in the shadows of its own potential. Now let's talk about Pakistan, a country grappling with the scourge of so-called honor killings. There's nothing honorable about murdering a woman because she dared to choose her own husband or pursue an education, or simply because she refused to be treated like property. Forced marriages, acid attacks, domestic violence, they're all part of a grim tapestry of violence woven into the fabric of Pakistani society. But here's the thing, there are countless brave women and men in Pakistan fighting back against these atrocities. Activists, journalists, lawyers risking their lives to challenge the status quo and demand justice for the victims. They need our support, our solidarity, our voices amplified in their fight for a just and equitable Pakistan. Next, we travel to Somalia, a country ravaged by decades of conflict and instability. But amidst the chaos, a silent epidemic continues to plague women and girls' female genital mutilation, FGM. FGM is a brutal, dangerous, and utterly unnecessary practice that inflicts lifelong physical and psychological trauma on its victims. Imagine being held down as a child, your genitals cut and mutilated, often without anesthesia or sterile equipment. But here's the thing. Culture is not static, it evolves. The women of Somalia deserve better. They deserve to live free from fear and pain. They deserve to have their voices heard, not silenced. And then there's India, the world's largest democracy, a land of vibrant colors, rich history, and sadly deeply entrenched gender inequality. From the dowry system, a practice that reduces women to commodities, to the horrific rates of sexual harassment and violence, India seems to be waging a silent war against its own women. Imagine living in a country where a woman is raped every 20 minutes, where acid attacks are used as a tool of revenge, where female fetuses are aborted simply because they're not male. But amidst the darkness, there are glimmers of hope. A new generation of women are rising up, demanding their rights, challenging the patriarchal norms that have held them back for far too long. And it's our duty, as citizens of the world, to stand with them, to amplify their voices, and to demand a future where every girl in India can live a life free from fear and violence. Let's talk about the Democratic Republic of Congo, a country where the term war-torn doesn't even begin to cover the horrors inflicted upon its people, especially its women. Imagine living in a place where rape is used as a weapon of war, a tactic to terrorize and control entire communities. But even amidst this darkness, there are women who refuse to be silenced, women who are fighting back, not with guns and grenades, but with courage and compassion. They're setting up safe houses for survivors of sexual violence, providing medical care, counseling, and legal aid. These women are heroes, every single one of them. It's our duty to support them, to shine a light on their plight, and to demand justice for the crimes committed against them. Next, we turn to Iraq, a country struggling to rebuild itself after decades of conflict and instability. The scars of war run deep here, etched not just on the landscape, but on the souls of its people, particularly its women. And in the midst of this chaos, women are fighting for their right to exist, to be more than just victims, to be agents of change in a society struggling to redefine itself. They're running for office, starting businesses, demanding a seat at the table where decisions are made. But the challenges are immense, and it's our duty to stand with them, to support their efforts, and to ensure that their voices are heard on the long road to peace and reconciliation. Finally, we come to Sudan, a country emerging from the shadow of dictatorship, but still grappling with a legacy of oppression, particularly when it comes to women's rights. Imagine living under a regime that enforces strict dress codes, that controls what you wear, how you speak, where you go. And while Omar al-Bashir's ouster was a cause for celebration, the fight for true equality is far from over. Women in Sudan are still fighting for basic rights, for equal access to education and employment, for an end to child marriage and FGM, for the right to control their own bodies and their own destinies. They're organizing, they're protesting, they're demanding a seat at the table where the future of their nation is being decided. And it's our duty as citizens of the world to amplify their voices, to support their struggle, and to ensure that their sacrifices are not in vain. We've covered a lot of ground tonight, folks. From the mountains of Afghanistan to the bustling streets of Delhi, we've witnessed the struggles, the injustices, and the incredible resilience of women facing unimaginable odds. But here's the thing. We are not helpless. There are countless organizations working tirelessly on the ground, fighting for women's rights, providing aid, education, and legal support. So what can you do? Educate yourself, donate to these organizations, speak out against injustice. The time for action is now. Don't look away.